There's one mineral you probably haven't even thought about, but your hormones, your immune system, and even your baby relies on it every single day. And there's a good chance that you are deficient. Back in the 1970s, less than 3% of the people were deficient in this mineral. Today, over 50% of the adults are falling short. It's no longer a fringe issue, it's a global public health crisis, affecting more than 2 billion people worldwide, and it's just forgotten about. A deficiency of this mineral has been linked to infertility, low IQ, metabolic issues, and even increased breast cancer risk. I remember when I was a kid, our parents were quite concerned and did everything that they possibly could to avoid a deficiency. I even remember public health drives educating families about the importance of this mineral, and I bet today not many even seem to remember it, nor have they even heard of this mineral. What's it that I'm talking about? It's iodine. Most people think of iodine only in the context of thyroid health. And yes, don't get me wrong, iodine is essential for the production of T3 and T4. But iodine plays a much bigger role. It is concentrated in a lot of the endocrine tissues. We're talking about the ovaries, we're talking about the prostate, breast tissue, salivary glands, the pancreas, and even the brain. These tissues actively absorb iodine, using iodine through sodium iodine symporters because they need it for immune protection, growth regulation, and tissue remodeling. It is especially important for pregnant women, not only for their own thyroid health, but also for the development of the fetal brain. Iodine deficiency during pregnancy has been associated with a host of conditions: increased risks of stillbirths, increased risks of miscarriages, congenital abnormalities, including what was previously termed cretinism, but I think the politically correct term right now is congenital hypothyroidism. What's also quite interesting is the number of studies that have come out showing that women with goiters, that's a benign growth of the thyroid, it's usually seen as a lump in the neck. These women have about a 3-time increased risk of developing breast cancer. All these studies will be mentioned down in the description below. In addition, iodine deficiency is also strongly linked to fibrocystic breast disease, a condition affecting about 50% of women of childbearing age. But here's the twist. Iodine supplementation has been shown to improve or even sometimes reverse these conditions. So you might ask, how is that so? Well, mechanistically, iodine helps regulate estrogen sensitivity in all endocrine tissues. So by definition, low iodine equals an increased sensitivity to estrogen. Estrogen is one of the most potent hormones to increase cell development and cell proliferation. There was a landmark study that was done in Japan, and as we all know, Japanese women have one of the lowest rates of breast cancer in the world. And we also identify that Japanese women consume about 25 to 50 times more iodine than the average Western woman. This is primarily through seaweed or kelp, or what we term sea vegetables. Now, when these Japanese women emigrated to the West and adopted a Western diet, their breast cancer rates started to climb. What was also interesting to note was their children who were born in the West had similar breast cancer rate rises, matching that of the local population, often within just one generation. Is it genetics? Unlikely, because they've got the same genes, which only leaves environmental or dietary factors. So let's think about what has happened here. We used to get our iodine naturally from soil, sea air, food fertilized with either ash or kelp. But modern farming practices replace that with synthetic fertilizers. And now they are very rich in nitrogen and potassium because that helps with the crops, but they're completely void of iodine. So the mineral quality of the food that we have today is not the same that we had in the 1980s or 1970s, essentially causing iodine to be completely and quietly pushed away from the food chain. The result is a dramatic increase in iodine deficiency, especially in women of childbearing age, pregnant women, people living more inland or at high altitude levels close to hilly areas. They just don't get much of the iodine coming from the sea. The RDA, that's the recommended daily allowance for iodine, is now considered to be 150 micrograms per day for non-pregnant adults. If you go to the historic reasoning of the 150 micrograms per day, that was the dose that was used to treat a goiter. It was the dose that was used to prevent further goiters from forming. It is in no way the optimized dose for total body function. During pregnancy, the recommendation increases merely by 100 micrograms, totaling up to 250 micrograms per day. Yet most women don't even hit this basic number. That doesn't mean that everyone should take mega doses of iodine, but it does mean that the RDA is likely inadequate for long-term wellness and should really be looked into. So what can you do to ensure that your iodine levels are optimized? Number one, the most obvious thing is you can test for it. Testing is not that simple. It's not a matter of just having a blood test, but rather it's a matter of how much iodine you're excreting through your urine. If you're pregnant or planning to be, it might be worth testing this, because I've seen personally a lot of patients that have what we call normal thyroid levels as per the general medical guidelines, but still they're possibly showing signs of being slightly hypothyroid, not enough to be treated by pharmacological means. Number two is incorporate iodine-rich foods, like increasing your seafood, especially we're talking about crustaceans, we're talking about mainly sardines, following what one would expect a Mediterranean diet would look like. The second thing would be increasing more seaweed, nori, kelp, something as simple as a kelp salad that you can get from most of the Japanese takeaways. They consist of anywhere between 12 to 15 milligrams of iodine. Number three would be using iodized salt. And iodized salt was something that was used quite prolific in Eastern Asia, and is still even being used today as a government push and a government initiative to reduce the cases of hypothyroidism in their respective countries. Number four, if you're unable to get your dose of iodine through your diet, then perhaps it might be worth to carefully consider supplementation. Supplementing with iodine is a little bit more complex, and there are lots of nuances that one might need to follow.